part. There we go. And it's been interesting here lately. We're kind of in between winter and spring. And I've noticed I still have been having redpolls in my backyard. And we walked down by the river here at Riverview and started to get really some good waterfowl and things there. We've been walking from in the mornings, I walk with my friend Chuck, for a mile or two, either in Riverview Park or now along from the motorcycle parking lot over towards the 11th Street Bridge. And we've had, no matter 4 or 5 days, or I think we had like 35 bird species, a lot of ducks on the river, quite a few goldeneye, scout, bufflehead, eagles, flight after flight after flight of geese, white-fronted geese going over, some snow geese mixed in, 50 trumpeter swans going back and forth. It's been a pretty good walk. So when the weather clears up, we might think about maybe starting some field trips, maybe go over there in the morning for a while. So keep posted be watching your website and emails for possible impromptu field trip maybe over there. Today I went over towards Big Marsh. I thought I'll take a check at that. And it was March 1st, I think, about 2017 maybe, or 19, a few years back. It was snow geese and geese, unbelievable amounts. There was open water on March 1st. Today it's frozen. I went on Highway 14 and I didn't see a single thing. And then I started seeing ducks in the middle. And I went and took a walk out for about a mile into the middle of the marsh, and there was just big flocks of pintail and mallards, mostly. And I talked to one of the DNR people there today, and he says, usually about March 15th, March 22nd, that starts to open up, and we should start seeing things. You should start seeing sandhill cranes. The red-winged blackbirds are back. The robins are back. So and I know we're all anxious. I am too. But I guess we got a little bit of snow coming in. So if you have something to share, something you've been seeing or unusual or not unusual, or just time, you can either put it in the chat or unmute yourself and tell us what you've been seeing here. Be watching for red-shouldered hawks over at George Wythe. They should be hearing nesting material about now. Yep.
How about this one? Sunday morning, just on the first tree off our deck, a turkey vulture.
Yep.
Roosting in a tree.
No surprise. Saw Canada geese on nests today already. Bald eagles are on a nest. Those are all good things to see.
Tom, I had Smith's longspur out in Cerro Gordo.
Oh, really? In the county?
Yeah, there was between 30 and 35 of them.
Wow, that's good.
And then there was a bunch. They were with about 250 to 300 longspur. There were some pine siskins in there as well. So pretty cool.
That's a good sighting. Sure.
Right next to Union Hills.
Okay. We've had maybe you saw on the website, we had somebody sent me a note that they had a long-eared owl in Cedar Falls. They've been there for 5 weeks. So I went over there, and maybe some of you know him. It's Chip Schmidt. He's a retired internist and does a lot of woodworking. He's been retired for 10 years. He lives over not far from Scott Garrett, Cedar Falls, over by the Unidome. So I went over to his house, and he opened up the blinds in his bedroom window, and sure enough, there I was, about 12 feet away, looking right at us. And then he went away for Candace posted it on the website, and the address and his phone number, and then they went away and just asked that if you want to go see it, call. He picked up a bunch of pellets for me the other day, and he was gone for about 3-4 days and hasn't seen it since, but doesn't mean it won't come back. So if it does come back, we'll let you know. We'll put it on there. And he's a very, very nice guy. I'll let you know, and you can look through his bedroom window into the spruce tree where it is. So, well, I think we've got, go ahead. Anybody else have something? Yeah.
I actually took his address off of the website because
Okay.
I didn't want it to be on there when they were out of town.
Good
So I
idea.
didn't really want people over there, perhaps, you
Sure.
know, doing that. So give them a call. Because when I called, I was going to drop by and he said, yeah, you know, we're out of town. Give me a call sometime after Sunday. So,
Yep.
so I just made that adjustment. So yeah. And
that's a good find for this year. We haven't seen a lot of saw-whets or long-eared owls, but it wouldn't surprise me to get some now. They should be leaving here pretty soon in the next few weeks, I think, for the north. So, well,
Tom,
I think I'll go ahead.
I was up in Minnesota at Sax-Zim about a month ago. I would be happy to take anybody back up there next winter. And it was just amazing. I don't know if any of you have been, but oh my God, what a place. Great owl.
I was up there in that eruption year and I had 72 great gray owls in the first afternoon that I was there.
Oh, wow.
What's the name of the place?
Sax-Zim Bog. It's up Duluth, Minnesota. It's well known for owls, and it's a great place to bird.
Wow.
No, fantastic.
I got American three-toed woodpecker up there as well. I was very pleased.
Yep.
It's a tough bird.
Francis remembers that. We were up there and spotted him. We had blackback and three-toed in the same tree about a foot apart. So somehow my computer just went berserk here. Can everybody still hear me okay?
yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Welcome, everybody. Francis tells me we have $16,816 in our account. That's going to change here pretty soon. We have grants. Applications are due the 15th of March. We have quite a bit of money of that set aside for grants for our counties. I don't know if Dennis is on or not right now. So we'll be having a board meeting about the 22nd. We have it on the 22nd. We may need to change that. I'm asking our board members if you could stay on for just a few minutes after the meeting. We might see if we can find out another a time or date within that to be able to meet. So we're coming up for 25 years of being our Audubon chapter is being renewed. It's kind of a pretty good accomplishment. More on that later. I just got thinking about that. It's pretty good. The Jane concert that's been put off for 2 years with the Waterloo Cedar Falls Symphony is this weekend on Saturday at 7. And it's a wonderful documentary on Jane Goodall. It's about an hour and a half long, and the music is played by the symphony. All the video and the speaking still goes on. So it's live music with a award-winning documentary on the life and science of Jane Goodall. So if you're interested in that at all, go ahead and give them a call. We're not doing block tickets like we did before, but there's still seats available. Hoping to see you there. Also got a note the other day that the Day of Insects, that's an annual, I think it's the last Saturday in March. It's at the Ryman Gardens in Ames. If you go to their website, they have a virtual day of talks for about a half hour each. And you can go in person also. We've always talked about Audubon not being just about birds, but insects and butterflies and bats and birds and animals, plants, you name it. And that might be something you might be interested in. It's been a fun time. You know, those insect guys are a little just kind of wacko sometimes. They got a good sense of humor. Let's see. I think that's about it. We have about $505 in a bird feed account right now. Can always use a little bit more. We still run our bird feeders through first part of May, I believe. So,
Hey, Tom.
Yeah.
There's a question in the chat. Can you just walk in and buy a ticket to the Jane concert that evening?
I would assume so. I haven't heard anything that you'd have to, that it's sold out. And I went to Jay Leno the other night and it was full. So some people wear masks, and but it was packed. And it's been a long time since I think we've had a complete sellout. So I think it wouldn't be a problem at all.
And one last question.
Mm-hmm.
What is the website for the insect event again?
It's through Ames. It's the Ryman Gardens, RIEMAN Gardens at Iowa State University. That should take you to their website, and on there they have a list of programs that they do for the public. And there's 2 listings, one in person, and then 2 is virtual, and they have all the speakers that are listed for the day. Starts about 9 o'clock, goes to about 4. Pretty interesting stuff. A lot of people from the Midwest give talks, and it's a good deal. So, anything else from anybody? Good group. Good to see so many familiar faces. We had a good crowd tonight. We're going to have a wonderful speaker. Looking forward to this. So Candace, take it away. She'll introduce Heather for us.
Okay. Again, we're really pleased to have Heather Wolf join us. She is a web developer at Cornell Lab of Ornithology and an author as well, and photographer. Her book is Birding at the Bridge: In Search of Every Bird on the Brooklyn Waterfront. She has taught birding classes at the Brooklyn Botanical Garden and the Brooklyn Brainery, and gives lectures for different organizations on different platforms. She's been on Spotify. Of course, she's done programs for the New York City Audubon, the Brooklyn Public Library, and has led bird walks for the Brooklyn Bridge Park, Washington Square Park Eco Projects, and more. She has a blog that I will throw the link for in the chat. And in addition to developing software, and we were talking about this earlier, she does programming for eBird. So we can thank Heather for its fabulous functionality, her and her colleagues. And so she, does that. She leads the bird walks and different classes, and also teaches juggling to promote mindfulness, fitness, and wellness. So fun facts about Heather. So please welcome Heather Wolf.
Thanks so much, Candace. And just thank you all for having me here tonight. And yeah, I'm very fortunate to be able to work with the eBird team. And I was talking to Candace just a few minutes ago about one of our recent features that we released called Trip Reports. And if you don't use it yet or haven't heard of it, what it is you can create basically a report of a group of checklists. So if you go to My eBird and then you look for Trip Reports, it will prompt you to select a range of dates, and then it will automatically select all the checklists from those dates, and you could exclude some if you want, and then it'll create you a nice trip report with a map of all the places you visited, all the species you saw, and you can invite people that were on your trip. So it's really cool. It's one of the, like I said, one of the most recent things I've worked on there at eBird, and I've also worked on Birdcast and just all sorts of fun projects. So, and I'm really excited to be here tonight and talk about patch birding. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen here. And can everyone see the slideshow here? Good. I'm going to turn on the share sound as well. That's already on. And I'm going to play it from the start. So patch birding. For anyone that, I know we have some people that are new to birding here tonight, and a lot of people don't really know what patch birding is. It's actually a term that originated in the UK or Europe. It's not that common of a term in the US, but a lot of us are already doing it. So basically it's looking for birds birding in the same location several times a week, and really getting to know that patch, that little section very well, knowing the patterns of migration there, the species that are there, observing behaviors, and it's really cool. So tonight we're gonna talk about my patch and also what I've discovered and how patch birding really makes a difference in your community and for your birding skills and all sorts of things. But just to start off, I love starting off with this quote from Thoreau: "Lead such a life as the children that chase butterflies in the meadow." And of course I added, "and birds," because to me, this is what birding is and what patch birding is. And just this thing that we do is it kind of takes us back to that magic of being a kid again. And that's what I love about it. And I think this quote really captures it. Tonight's topics, patch birding all the way, but we're going to talk about my adventure in my urban patch in Brooklyn, New York. My patch is pretty much right under the Brooklyn Bridge, and I live really close to this beautiful park. So I'm just going to give you a tour of some of the amazing things that I've seen and continue to see at that park, and also how you can build your birding skills, whether you're new to birding or whether you've been doing it for years. Having a patch can really be like your field lab for honing in on behaviors and detecting patterns and all sorts of things. And finally, I'm also going to talk about the many positive impacts of patch birding and having a patch. So let's go ahead, and before I talk about my Brooklyn patch, before I knew what patch birding was, when I started birding in Florida in 2010, I was living in Florida in a place called Villas on the Gulf in Pensacola Beach. That's where I got started with birding. And I didn't realize it, but this was my condo complex. It was my very first patch. This is the aerial view of it. I love to look at this. So the Gulf Coast is on the bottom. That was Pensacola Beach, but I was in building A, and in between, on the way to the beach, there was that kind of pond area, and there were so many birds, black skimmers there were grebes and all sorts of beautiful birds, green herons, and then of course out on the beach there were even more nesting shorebirds, and then marine life and all sorts of things. But I started birding when I was living here, and I didn't even realize this was my very first patch. And it's where I saw my favorite bird still to this day. I remember I noticed this bird in an oleander bush in the parking lot, and I was like, oh, this has got to be something rare. It's this amazing sparrow looking bird with yellow. And turns out it wasn't rare, but it's still beautiful. And I didn't hear it sing down there, but I hear it sing here. And I just want to play the song for you. That is one of the reasons it's my favorite bird. And also because it's here in Brooklyn, and probably in your area as well during the winter. So it kind of, that little splash of color, the yellow, kind of carries me through winter until migration comes back around. And right just about 2 hours ago, I went out for a walk after sunset, and these birds were singing at night, these white-throated sparrows. So I just love those. So this is my patch. This is Brooklyn Bridge Park in the fall with the fall colors. As you can see, it's got a great view of the Brooklyn Bridge. It's got the best views in New York City. If you ever visit New York City or next time you're here, I highly recommend coming over to Brooklyn Bridge Park. It's very close to get to. It's like one subway stop from Manhattan, and it from the Brooklyn side, you just see, you can see the Statue of Liberty, you can see Lower Manhattan, and you can bird with these landmarks as the backdrop. Right now, the excitement in the patch is in one of the towers, the other tower, the one not pictured, it's closer to the Brooklyn side on the right. We have common ravens nesting there for the second year in a row. So they're pretty noisy with the croaking as they fly overhead, and it's just really cool to see. But urban birding, with an urban patch, a lot of things you expect are like peregrine falcons. So New York City does have the highest density of peregrine falcons anywhere in the world, believe it or not, thanks to reintroduction programs and the banning of pesticides and things like that. But right across from my patch is Lower Manhattan and this building here where the peregrines nest, and they've been doing so for several years. And they have a very addictive webcam that they put on every spring. And of course, the peregrine falcon visits my patch quite a bit. So that's a treat. But apart from peregrine falcons, we get all sorts of birds. Of course, during migration, we get many things passing through. We have a lot of breeding birds, not as many as you have out there in Iowa. I'm very impressed looking at the bar charts for eBird and what you all have there during the breeding season. And I'm very jealous, I must admit. But we do have our share of breeding birds, even in New York City. And this is a map view of what my patch looks like. So on the left there, that's Lower Manhattan. And so this rectangle is where I bird. It's Brooklyn Bridge Park. It does extend above the rectangle, but I don't, just a little bit. I don't really bird up there just because I live down where at the bottom where the green home is. That's where I am right now. So it's a lot of ground to cover as it is. And I just don't see a lot north of the Brooklyn Bridge. At the very top of the rectangle is where the Brooklyn Bridge is. But as you can see, it's an interesting layout for a park. It's long, you know, it's, they've created these habitats in these narrow areas and also in the piers that jut out into the water. And when I first started birding here, a lot of the piers were not yet developed. So things have progressed over the years and the habitats have increased. And just, I think 2 months ago, they completed the very last part of the park. So this has been going on for over 10 years. And I started birding it in 2012. This section right here under, it's right at the foot of the Brooklyn Bridge. This is Pier 1. And this is a hot spot during migration because it has very mature trees and the most variety of habitats, even though it's very tiny. This is the view of it from the Brooklyn Bridge. Doesn't look like much, right? But it's got a freshwater ponds, a couple of those. It's got a marsh and these trees. There's a lot of mature trees for the park. They're still fairly young, but for the rest of the park, this has the most wooded habitats and variety of habitats. And I've seen 179 species in this park, and about 83% of those I've seen in this little patch. But really, like in the off season, but winter or even in summer, a lot of the other piers are really contenders now for Pier 1. The more and more that these habitats kind of grow and kind of attract birds. Here's another great view from from Pier 4 at Brooklyn Bridge Park. This is every night I get this view. If I want to, actually from my window, I actually get the view from my window too, but it doesn't look, this is with the zoom camera. So I'm not that close to the Statue of Liberty, even though I can see it from here. And the cool thing about my patch is, like I said, so you have a backdrop for taking photos. So if you do visit, you can pretty easily get a shot of, like, you know, a gull, a ring-billed gull, or in the summer, a common tern with the statue behind it or with the bridge behind it. But this was admittedly a very lucky shot. I was out at the end of the pier and the brant were flying by, and somehow I wasn't planned. I just happened to get this. So, but you do have a lot of great bird photo ops in this patch. Now, when I initially started birding Brooklyn Bridge Park, there weren't really people birding it regularly. There were occasional birders that spent most of their time in other hotspots in Brooklyn, like Prospect Park or Greenwood Cemetery, things like that. But when I moved here from Florida, I really didn't want to be traveling a lot, you know, to bird. I thought, well, what can I find right by where I live? What if I give this new park a try? Luckily, this park had opened, and but the basic sentiment was that it was just too crowded, because with those views, it's full of people. It's a very popular park, and yeah, it seems like there wouldn't be a lot of birds there, of course, but nothing could be further from the truth. It is a crowded park. That's definitely true, but there are definitely a lot of birds. So, for example, this is called the Water Lab. This is a water playground in the park. And when they turn the water off and they shut it down for the evening during the summers, or basically like late spring or early fall, the water kind of attracts insects. So you get mosquitoes and things like that. And the warblers just go crazy. So one night I think this was during fall migration, and there were 4 warblers in this exact tree. Now, what I thought was, this is a Dawn redwood. It's a non-native tree, by the way. But what I thought was so cool about this was that these birds were in their expected level of the tree, because black and white warblers forage low. That's the lowest one. Then you have common yellowthroats that are a lot of times at shrub level. And then magnolia warblers a little higher, and American redstart's a little higher. So they definitely break the rules sometime. But I just thought that this water lab was actually a bird lab to study bird behavior and watch them forage all at the same time in this busy little park. I want to go back, because see the arrow here, and it's pointing to this wooden platform. The thing about having a patch is you're going to detect patterns and little hot spots that don't really match anything in a birding guide or anything like this. So you'll know the places where the birds like to hang out. And this arrow points to a wooden platform that has a metal grate beneath it where insects collect. And this is guaranteed to turn up some really good birds during migration, because they pick the insects out of the metal grate. And these are just the kind of things. And I lead, as Candace mentioned, I lead bird walks here. And I love doing this because I know where things are. Oftentimes I'll lead walks in parks that I don't bird a lot. And it's great, but it's not as good as leading a walk at a park you just know so well, and you know all the little spots where things are happening. So this is a sora, probably the rarest bird that showed up in the park. And this was early on when I started birding it. And you don't normally see a sora in the middle of a lawn. This is a little strange, but I guess it just landed. It probably needed to land in a green patch, but eventually it found its way to one of my favorite habitats in Brooklyn Bridge Park, which is the Long Pond, and that's the bridge in the background. And there's an elevated path to the left of this that I'm going to show you a photo of, but all that lush vegetation to the left is sumac, staghorn sumac, which is a huge food source for birds that last through winter. And it's just, and also it's great for hiding. We have every summer, there's at least one black-crowned night heron roosting right there during the day. And it's really close. So along this path, you just look down to the right and you're basically looking at that sumac. So you're 10 feet away or less from the black-crowned night heron, and all sorts of other activity going on. But the cool thing about this is when you're here, I call it the dark forest. During the summer, when it's all leafed out, it doesn't feel like you're in the city. So it really kind of feels like you're escaping and just being right in nature here. So over the years, I mentioned, in addition to Pier 1, there have been many new habitats, and it's just really blown my mind what's gone on. After I finished my book, Pier 6 opened. So believe it or not, in my book, I have no photos from Pier 6 because it just wasn't open yet. But now it's really one of the best spots, because this is an amazing flower field. Brooklyn Bridge Park has a lot of native plants. There are some non-natives, but a lot of native wildflowers and plants to attract birds. And this is just amazing for a lot of rare sparrows. A couple of years ago, when there was the pine siskin eruption over here in the Northeast and evening grosbeaks, I didn't get an evening grosbeak, but that same year, there were so many pine siskins just feasting on the seed heads left over from summer flowers. So, and of course, you get another great view here as you're looking at birds. And this is a Lincoln sparrow taken there among the wildflowers. And you can see how close you are to these birds, because the flower field is low, and you get some really good shots. There's pine siskin feasting on the seed heads. I love too that the gardeners are always experimenting with new plants, new techniques, new phases of plantings. And I'm always discovering new flowers. I thought my favorite was the sweet bay magnolia flower, but I don't know. I discovered this pink turtle head last spring, and I think it's my favorite, especially when I saw a yellow warbler eating from it. And it's just, it kind of looks like a succulent, but it's just got these gorgeous turtle head-like flowers. And just to give you an idea of how close you can get to these birds, I mean, urban birding it's crazy. That's why you just get so close to the birds. This gray thing below the blue-winged warbler is a 2-foot tall metal railing, 2 feet. So I'm looking down at this bird, like almost too close to get a photo of it. And this bird was here. It was in the park for about a month. Pretty amazing. There's just this flower field just attracts so many insects and so much food for these birds. They just have an abundance of resources, which is really great. And I'll talk a little bit about this later, that the park, I kind of consult with the park on what's working for the birds and what kind of berries and seeds they're using, what sites they're using for nesting. And it's great. And we have this kind of dialogue going where they're happy to hear, suggestions for how to maintain and improve habitats to attract birds and pollinators. This is another pier. This is kind of in the middle, Pier 3. This opened in 2018, a huge lawn, right? But it's surrounded by all sorts of prairie grasses and native blueberry bushes, holly, and it's a magnet for sparrows and all sorts of flycatchers. In fall, it's just wild. I've seen a lot of rare birds here. And what's great about the park too is they kind of have this great aesthetic using leftover things like granite blocks or logs like this that form natural pools of water for the birds. So after it rains, there's just all sorts of cute little scenes like this that you can photos you can get of white-throated sparrow, my favorite bird once again. Now it's funny, before Pier 3 had opened and they were trying to root the grass there, they were having a problem, of course, with Canada geese stopping by. So they tried to deter the Canada geese by putting some coyote cutouts here. And it definitely did me. When I first saw this, because it wasn't open and I was viewing from afar and I thought, oh, there's a coyote up there. But it was not, and it did not deter the geese. In fact, they had 3 of them out there. The one in the back left is a 3D, like a plastic coyote, but there's the Brant geese there too. It didn't seem to bother them in the least, but I thought it was pretty funny. And now this is what you saw earlier, the big green lawn. This was also a big gull roost before they put the lawn down, but I have more on the gull roost coming soon and what happened with that. So the more you bird a patch, like I never I'm kind of quiet, maybe a little bit introvert. Like I've never like made waves or like thought of myself as being an activist or anything. But the more I've been birding a patch, the more I start saying something and calling meetings with people and like really trying to promote the safety and well-being of birds and trying to help a little, do a little part in conservation. And I think maybe the first time it took a while, but there was a Nelson sparrow out at Pier 3 and very rare for our area here. And myself and a few birders were looking at it. And in Brooklyn Bridge Park, there are a lot of people with dogs in New York City. There's tons of dogs here and there aren't a lot of places to give the dogs exercise. But the park, we don't allow dogs on the lawns. But when the Nelson sparrow was there were some people with bringing the dogs on the lawn. So I was kind of the enforcer and I would go over. And what was so great about this was it was an opportunity to tell people about the bird life. So I would say, there's a very rare sparrow here and the signs are really hard to see anyway. And, but there aren't dogs allowed. And they were just so, for the most part, very receptive and asked questions about the birds. And really, so we got to hang out with this Nelson sparrow and give it a lot of room to forage. So I think that was kind of the first time I kind of spoke up and said, I'm going to do my little part to protect these birds. And another thing that's interesting is sometimes you think that things are going to affect your patch. if you have a patch, there are pros and cons, because you love it so much that, but some things are going to happen to it, right? Some habitats are going to go away, or they're going to replace it, especially in an urban environment. So it's kind of bittersweet, right? But I found out they were going to be turning this water in between Pier 4 and 3 into a marina. And this marina is where I saw a tundra swan, a rare tundra swan. It was full of buffleheads and red-breasted mergansers during the winters. And I thought, oh, this marina is really going to affect these winter diving ducks and other things showing up in the winter, right? But it turns out it did affect it a little bit. I don't see as many of them there, but this gull roost, and they're out there right now, is amazing. It's one of the biggest gull roosts in Brooklyn and probably New York City. Some nights we have 4,000 and 5,000 ring-billed gulls roosting here all night long. And I think that, yeah, this is a video. So you can see right above that, that's the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. So it kind of gives you an idea for how narrow this park is. It's really, really a thin park, but this, for the gull roost too, I've seen a rare black-headed gull. Sometimes Iceland gulls show up here, and it's just even seeing that quantity of birds is amazing. And being able to bird at night, I could go out there now, and there's some lights from the adjacent soccer fields that illuminate all the gulls, and they're pretty noisy. So it's definitely a spectacle. So it's bittersweet, but it's, you know, something that seemed like it was going to be a negative turned out to be a positive, and it's amazing. Pier 5, this was, I just showed you the Brooklyn Queens Expressway there. So right below that is this is Pier 5. So you're very close to the roadway there, this is a berm to kind of contain the sound. And this is an elevated path that runs along the berm. And when this first opened, I didn't really see much there. I didn't have too high hopes for this, but I thought, well, let me give it a shot and see what's up here. There's some switchgrass here. Maybe something will happen. So my friend Bob and I were, before brunch, we would bird all the time, and we saw something dart by. It looked kind of greenish yellow. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. But we had to go to brunch. So we went to brunch. I came back, and it turned out to be a painted bunting, which is really, really rare for here. And it wound up staying for 2 months because it just had such a resource of these switchgrass seeds. So it alternated between this Pier 5 and this other pier I showed you, Pier 3, which also had a lot of switchgrass. And it attracted a lot of attention. I'd say over 100 birders came to see it and photograph it. It would always hide in the grasses and give people like a tough time to get photos of it. And then it even turned up on the news. Someone got a hold of one of my worst, blurriest pictures of the bird and put it on the news. But yeah, I mean, it was so exciting. And just to see such a rare bird show up in a tiny little patch of switchgrass that really, you know, it didn't seem like it was going to be that great, but you just never know. And that's one of the things about patch birding is if you bird a place a lot, and I get stuck in this, I do my usual route because I know the hot spots, right? It's definitely worth it to vary your route and just see what's in the other little nook. And you never know, because it happens to me all the time where I'm really glad I took a different turn from time to time. These are just some other birds that have shown up in the patch. I never thought I'd get a Blackburnian because they forage really hot, really tall. I mean, forage high in tall trees. And, but here it was, like it was low in these trees. These are very young, low trees, very sparse, and it was about eye level. So, you know, that's the other thing with urban habitats is the birds kind of take what they can get. And if they need food and they need to rest, they're going to do what they can. So with time, pretty much, you know, a lot of things are going to find their way to an urban patch, whether it's ideal or not. During the pandemic, this was a rare clay-colored sparrow that for some reason liked this weed. It's a sow thistle. The gardeners were on leave because of the pandemic, and some of the weeds grew up and it really liked it. So kind of interesting too, to see what what the birds use. And even more recently, the great thing now is that since I've been birding this place for a long time, my book came out in 2016. So people are definitely taking more notice. There's more people birding the park. And then of course, with the pandemic, more people are just birding in general close to home. So it's kind of facilitated patch birding. So a crew of, I'd say 10 to 15 people are now birding Brooklyn Bridge Park regularly. So when I'm working for Cornell Lab of Ornithology at home and, on my lunch break, I check my WhatsApp messages and people say, oh, they're finding birds out there. So my 178th redhead that was found by Catherine Quayle, who is a birder in Brooklyn Bridge Park and here in Brooklyn. So of course I went down after work the next day and got that. And she also found the long-tailed duck. I think Pete who's another birder, found the redhead initially, and then Catherine found the long-tailed duck. But hey, so I'm up to 179. This is the most recent bird species that I have seen in the park. So I'm really wondering what's going to be 180. I don't have an owl yet, so I need an owl, and I'm hoping for a monk parakeet. But what about how does all of this help your birding skills? Because when I started birding in Florida, I would be kind of taking trips to try to add to my list and see wood storks and this and that, and I would just go get the bird and then leave. But I noticed, like, the more I bird the same location, my birding skills actually improve because I get familiar with habitats and get to know a place really well. So one of the things, for example, that I love to do is I'm not that, in the past, I haven't been that great with tracking birds in flight through my binoculars or even with the naked eye, because you want to be able, it's like with juggling. So Candace, you mentioned I juggle. So when you start, it's really fast, right? You don't know what's going on, but if you just keep doing it, it's going to slow down. It's the same thing with birds. If you keep tracking them, they're going to slow down. So whether it's with the naked eye or in your binoculars, you can build this skill with the common birds of your patch, which in my case are house sparrows and starlings. So when birding is slow, it's not migration, and you've got your common birds around, that's an opportunity to go ahead and practice those kinds of things. Also, the behavior, when you have a patch, you're better able to kind of internalize the behaviors that tip you off to certain species. For example, an eastern phoebe that you can detect by silhouette and then the tail bobbing. So I never believed that was possible when I read field guides until I was seeing this bird all the time. And now I know what that is just by a silhouette. So for those of you, I know a couple of you are just starting as well. The more you're out there and in a patch in the same place, you'll get it. I know when I started, my mentor, Lucy Duncan, would just look up and say, oh, it's a northern flicker. And I had no idea how she did it, but now I do it. And I don't know how it happened. I mean, I do. It was from birding a lot in a patch, but it's not like it happens immediately, but it's going to happen the more you're out there, especially the more you're out there in the same location. Behavior is one of my favorite things about birds. And that's the thing about a patch. The more you're out there, the more you have a chance to see some crazy things because you're spending so much time there. For example, in my book, I saw the courtship display of a brown-headed cowbird. It looked like a vampire. It was crazy, but I don't have a picture of that. It's in the book. But also the behavior, like I never knew that Baltimore Orioles actually drank nectar. They rob nectar from flowers. So you can see here, this Baltimore Oriole has slit the bottom of, this is a non-native tree called Paulownia or princess tree. And basically, if you're under this tree in late spring or summer, you'll see the ground is covered in these blooms that have fallen, and a lot of them have slits. Actually, I just noticed, I've never noticed this before. If you look at the top of this photo, I think it's on the right, you'll see a slit in one of the blooms. See, and you can see that was where the Baltimore Oriole was also kind of robbing nectar. So, but on the ground, you will see a lot of this. So you'll know, evidence of some Baltimore Oriole robbing nectar just by, observing this behavior. The other thing too, barn swallows nest under the piers of Brooklyn Bridge Park. And you usually don't see them in these large groups. I know, at least in my patch, I know you have a lot of species of swallows over your way that breed. So you probably have a lot of really cool behaviors to look at over there. But I do know that when this happens and when these birds gather in what I consider a large group for my patch, the next day or two, they're gone, because this is their South America trip planning meeting that happens after breeding season sometime in summer, and they're getting ready to go, and they all kind of gather in a group before they head down. The other thing about patch birding is you can start to predict patterns. They're different for every patch, really. I mean, because like crows, like when I hear crows vocalizing in my patch, that usually means there's some drama, and that is the case for a lot of places, but not always. But for me, it usually means there's a red-tailed hawk around, and so I always know to just scan the sky and look around for raptors. But also there's some very unpredictable behavior with very common species in the park, like this battle of the waffle cone that took place near an ice cream stand in Brooklyn Bridge Park. But the other thing with field guides that I would always read, and I thought I'm never going to be able to do this, you can find an ovenbird in leaf litter. It's like, well, I looked at leaf litter for, I don't know, a year before I ever found an ovenbird, because it's hard to believe until you actually see it. But once you do, and the more you see it, the more you realize how true it really is. So true that when I lead bird walks in my patch during migration, we just stand there looking at leaf litter, and within 5 minutes, usually quicker, we see this bird because it's constantly moving. It kind of struts like a chicken, as many of you know. And so you get used to detecting these associations with food and habitat. For example, certain birds like the sweet bay magnolia fruit, like the red-eyed vireo, and also the eastern kingbird likes that. Sound, of course, I'm not an expert at bird sound by any means, but I do know the sounds of birds in my patch very well. Surprisingly, I can even detect like this little, single note sound of between a white-throated sparrow and a song sparrow. Just because I'm around it so much. They sound very similar, but I'm like, oh, I know that that's the song. But you'll notice these things. For example, a kestrel, like I think I went on a Christmas bird count and someone didn't believe that I knew there was a kestrel vocalizing. They're like, how do you know that? I'm like, well, only because I hear it every day and I see it. And I know that's what it was. But otherwise I would have no idea. So if I go to your patch, you're going to be the expert, and you're going to, let me know what you're hearing, because I will certainly have no idea. But this is what's so cool about birding a place regularly, is that you really become an expert of these species that are in your patch. And of course, crows, we've got now we've got two different crows here. We've got the fish crow and American crow, but then we've got the raven. So we've got adding that into the mix and kind of detecting the differences in corvids based on sound is always fun. And then summer breeding, I think for non-birders, a lot of times you hear about migration and you think summer's kind of a downtime. But I think especially for people that are just starting birding, that summer, or anyone, summer's the best time, because you have breeding birds and you witness nests, you witness feeding of young, and crazy behaviors of some of these birds. One of my favorite is when the barn swallows collect mud for their nests. This is a picture from the book, and I really wanted to get this photo, and I was talking to the gardener and making sure they turned on the water source to kind of create some mud for when these swallows arrived. But I look forward to that, and I think this should be happening very soon in early May. So I'm looking forward to that again this year. And then, the whole phases. So, when breeding season's great because they're building their nests, so you get to see that. You see the courtship. You see them bringing food to young, which in this case I can't see because it's under the piers when they're in the nest. But once they fledge, then they start appearing around the park waiting for food. And that's what this picture is two very adorable barn swallows waiting to be fed. And here's one that got some food. Now the positive impacts of a patch, I really find, when people just see you out there birding, that's a great opportunity to share birding and share the idea of conservation and the importance of habitats with not only the community, but also the staff and the gardening staff and everybody. I mean, I have my binoculars and I also have a camera, and I was shocked that how many people come up and ask me what I'm looking at. And a lot of times when they do, if it's a really good day, I'll just give them an impromptu bird walk and say, hey, come look at, there's 24 ruby crowned kinglets. And one lady, one time I did that, she goes, oh my gosh, I never saw this many birds here. And I said, well, it's not like this every day, but it's good, you know. So just being out there is first step, you know. And you know, kind of telling people what's around or answering questions is great. I call it urban visibility, and it's definitely a big deal in Brooklyn, as you can imagine. I said it's a packed park, so I get the opportunity to like spread this around with a lot of people that are passing by from all over the world. And one day there was a scarlet tanager I discovered on a lawn during migration eating out of an apple, but the park was crowded on this day, but nobody saw the bird. I sat down with the big lens, started photographing it. And of course, people noticed me, and then they lined up and started photographing the bird. So just being out there kind of draws the attention. And this can change people's lives. I mean, a year later, I saw a guy at a coffee shop. He said, you know, I didn't say anything back then, but I was there that day you were photographing that red bird. I go, oh, the scarlet tanager. And he said, and really, I've been watching birds ever since. And it really, really has like made a difference in my life. So just, you know, being out there, the more people that are out there, the more people that are going to get inspired to do the same thing and get on the birding train, and which helps conservation and helps protection of habitats. And it's really cool. And I mentioned even sometimes the staff doesn't realize what a great job they're doing. This is the gardening staff that was there. It's since changed, but they were there during the making of my book. And we had a great dialogue going. They would always see this red-tailed hawk, and I never saw it until like a week before my manuscript was due. And I finally got a photo of it. But we would tell each other where we were seeing birds. And I was surprised to find out they didn't know a lot of the birds that were visiting a lot of these little mini micro habitats throughout the park. So their work was really, really attracting these birds. And so they were really, really super excited to find out what was happening with their plantings. And I kind of like developed a great dialogue and kind of this relationship with the park where now I walk with a gardener once a season and kind of talk through the habitats and talk about grass cutting and, you know, make sure things don't affect the birds and everything. So it takes a while to develop this type of relationship. I definitely admit it took me a while, but it's worth it to just kind of see where it leads and start talking to the staff, gardening staff, even the cleanup crew. I mean, a lot of the people, like the cleanup crew, they're like taking photos, like they're asking me what the birds are. I mean, any opportunity to share birds with, they don't have to be in a nature field, just because the gardeners are especially, they have an affinity for it, but just really anybody, a lot of people like birds, right? It's one of those things. There are some people that don't, but for the most part, everybody definitely is cool with seeing a hawk or a raptor or a beautiful scarlet tanager. So case in point about the gardening staff. So, well, and then the park in general. So they named this place Bird Island, but it's not very birdy. So that's kind of the thing. You have this place, Bird Island. This is like a little mini bird sanctuary, but it's just not the hotspot of the park. So and you kind of think about why. I mean, there are definitely some birds there, but it just doesn't have the cover. It doesn't have mature trees, and you know, it doesn't have a lot of prairie grass and things like that. But it is interesting that if you were to visit this park and you'd say, oh, Bird Island, I got to go there. But no, you got to go to Pier 1. Pier 6 and where the patches of switchgrass are, for sure. So yeah, you definitely want to start a dialogue with the park or your local patches or wildlife management areas. One of the great things was they were planting bayberry at the park, and this is the reason we got wintering yellow rump warblers. So I mentioned it to Rebecca McMacken, who's the head horticulturist and at the park. And when they were planting Pier 3, they put a lot of bayberry out there. So I think a couple of years ago, we had like 24 yellow rumps over winter here. Same thing with, this is little blue stem grass. This is really attractive for chipping sparrows. And they really do a good job with the cutting and the management of keeping this around for the birds and making sure there's enough seeds in the fall and winter for the birds. The other thing about having a patch is that a lot of people, I know when I started birding, you think, oh, you have to go on these trips. Trips are great. I mean, I'm going down to Florida tomorrow to see some burrowing owls, but I mean, you definitely want to go on birding trips, but you don't have to. You can find some stuff close to home. And that's kind of what I like to kind of promote is birding close to home. In between your trips, you can still discover some amazing stuff and improve your birding skills. When I went to Colombia, yeah, I saw the Southern Emerald Toucanet. It was great. And it was probably one of the best photos I got. But most of the time I was cranking my neck, trying to get a good view and a good photo of birds. And I was really psyched to get back to my patch in Brooklyn and getting eye level views of amazing birds during migration. Still want to go back to Colombia though. But the point is there that there's a lot to see around us. And it's the other thing about patch birding is that if you document your sightings in eBird, you can fill in data gaps. So if someone's not entering any data there, or even if they are, but it's not daily and not regular, by submitting your sightings to eBird, you can kind of document that location. And that's what happened when I started documenting Brooklyn Bridge Park. And of course, yeah, I mean, this not only enables other people to see what birds are around, but enables scientists and researchers to analyze the data and create models that inform conservation efforts and help our birds. So even if you don't submit to eBird, I hope you do, but even if you don't, let it be known that you are documenting birds in some other way, like a notebook or in an Excel spreadsheet, because there are definitely organizations that may want to know about this. I got asked by Landscape Architecture Foundation about my data, and they didn't just want eBird data. They wanted to know what trees the birds were using for nesting and things like this. And I had been taking notes. So even, any way you document it, somebody might want that data someday. And imagine if everybody had a patch and everybody documented their sightings, contributed to citizen science, everybody shared their knowledge of the importance of or how well the plantings were doing with the gardening staff and all of these patches. This is already happening in a lot of places, but there are still plenty of ground to cover. And maybe you have a patch that you haven't thought of, or maybe a place that you do bird, or you've been thinking about birding more. But I definitely encourage you to document your sightings there and just start taking a closer look at it close to home and getting, to notice these amazing behaviors and, habitats of a place close to home, because the community too will take notice. Like, this is what's happened with me. I bird the same place all the time. So like, people see me out in the park, and my book came out in 2016, but I'm still getting people asking, oh, can we, share your bird photos in the Brooklyn Daily Eagle? This just happened a year ago. Sure, of course, share it with the community. And this is just still going on, where more and more people are finding out about the birds of the community. The other great thing about the patch is, or patch birding, is there's always something new to see. It's not just about birds, it's about the plants and the trees and the insects or the seahorses. I couldn't believe I got this photo. I didn't know what it was. I saw a laughing gull struggling with something in its bill. When I looked at my photos, it turned out to be a little seahorse in the East River of New York City. Also harbor seal. Luckily, the Rebecca McMacken turned me on to this, that it was out at Pier 2, and I ran out there after work to see it. And one of the gardeners, Pavel, he's an insect expert, and showed me this candy stripe leafhopper, which is like, I don't know, like a quarter of a centimeter long, very tiny, but it looks bigger here. And a spice bush swallowtail caterpillar, and hummingbird clearwing moth. So all of this stuff, so during summer, even though there are limited species and it's the breeding species, you have the excitement of the breeding, but you also have all the insects, and that's a whole other world. I mean, once you start looking at that, you lose track of time, and it's like you're on another planet. It's pretty cool. But even more exciting than all of this stuff to me is seeing normal, like the everyday birds doing wild things I've never seen before. So a pigeon looking like a turkey when it was stretching. Anytime it snows now, the American crows go clamming. But it's only when it snows. I guess, I don't know why. The garbage is covered in snow, so they go to the clams. Never seen that before until a couple of years ago. When it snows, the freshwater sources dry up, and sometimes it's very sad. So you see this gray catbird, which was overwintering in our park due to the great habitats of the cedar berries and bayberries, and was struggling to get water. But this is a prettier picture where it was eating the pollen of a hibiscus. And this is yellow warbler that was just eating aphid after aphid. If you look really closer where its bill is, it was just sucking them up. And it makes me so happy when birds can find just great food resources. And then a northern mockingbird looking like a roadrunner or something. I mean, I had never seen such a pose like this. This was wild. And then something recently I saw for the first time is downy woodpecker territorial displays. So they're gonna freeze and then they'll start up again. And then they go. And that was just across the street. It took me a long time to witness this though. So, I mean, years, you just never know. There's always something new. And I encourage you to also share the magic of your patch, whether it's with your friends and family, or you want to lead bird walks, or you want to just strike up a conversation and show people some migrating birds that are coming through your patch, because the more people that get into this, the better it's going to be for all of us and for the birds and for conservation. So that is the end of my presentation, and I hope that you'll agree that patch birding is awesome and it has an impact. And I would love to take your questions now. So let me, I'm going to stop the share. And so Candace, the scarlet tanager is your spark bird? How awesome.
Yes, it is.
What's a good spark bird? Do you have a
story? I can identify with that gentleman then. Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us your story or the spark bird?
Oh, actually, yeah. I saw it when we were biking along the Root River Trail in Southeast Minnesota. And so it was, 10, 12 miles per hour. And it's like, what's that red bird? And yeah, how can you not?
Right. It is so
revel in the glory of that bird. Yeah. So that's my story.
That is amazing. Okay. So we don't have too many questions. I don't think. Do you feed the birds? I do not feed the birds. You would think so, right? Because my photos are so close. They don't allow feeding of the birds in the park. And, I like that they feed on native plants. There's plenty of food for them. And the thing about feeding the birds, especially in an urban park, is it attracts a lot of pigeons. And so one of the reasons we don't have a lot of pigeons in the park, we have some, but is because you can't feed the birds. So, and there aren't any feeders either, but feeders are great for winter and stuff. But I kind of like that we just have a lot of native plantings and plenty of food for birds in the winter with the seeds.
I have a question about sound. You don't do much birding by ear as such, but with the noise of the city, do you notice an impact on how much bird song that the birds are actually making, I guess is what the question is.
Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, I mean, I hear it. So like when I was out a couple hours ago, I was actually recording a white-throated sparrow. But when you do a bird recording, you hear so much noise. It's like a low quality recording because of, you know, the Brooklyn Queens Expressway, the sirens, everything. Mm-hmm. But I can detect, you know, I when you're out there, you get good at detecting the bird song above the sounds of the city. But they're still singing. I mean, we had two fox sparrows overwintering, and I heard a fox sparrow sing for the first time over here. So they're singing.
Heather, I have several questions for you. I just got back from New York City last Thursday.
Oh, wow.
And my daughter and I walked the High Line Trail.
Yeah.
And just witnessing the plantings and things, I wondered what zone New York City is in, if you know that.
You mean for like the water?
Climate zone, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the zone levels are, but I know right here, this is a flood danger zone. But so especially Red Hook, which is a little bit further south. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the piers are pretty raised, but I wasn't here during the hurricane. I moved here right after, but it, you know, it is.
But as far, like, do you know if you're zone 5, zone 4?
What's the worst, zone 5?
For flowering vegetation.
Yeah. You know, for your climate zone, for what plants you can
I don't know. Okay. I don't know the climate zone, but I will look that up. That's interesting. Yes.
And then your staff, or the staff in the park, are they students or are they permanent staff?
Yeah. So there are permanent staff, and there are summer interns, seasonal. Okay. And then there are some gardeners that have been here for years, 10 years, quite a few that have been here 5 to 10 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because the park is private. It's open to the public, but it was started with government funds, but now ongoing, it is a private park, which means it has to procure its own funds. Because of that, there are condos, and there is a high rise here that it provides income for the park. So that's kind of a bittersweet thing too.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. We saw white-throated sparrows in Madison Square Park.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I thought they were all English sparrows, and I started looking, I thought, no, these are white-throated. This is great. But
were they singing?
No, not then.
Yeah, I think they just started. Yeah. You might have just missed it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was hoping to see more birds. We went up to the Ramble in Central Park. Mm-hmm. And it was really great because we saw a woman that apparently was employed by the park who knew a ton of things about the birds that were there.
Oh, nice.
And she was part of the Parks Conservancy. And she took a long time talking to us about the birds, and her name is Debbie, if you ever run into her.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So, yeah, it was great. And the High Line was really neat because of all of the native plantings they had along there, and the witch hazel was all in bloom.
Oh, the witch hazel's here too. I think there is a book on the birds of the High Line. I think someone did a book kind of somewhat similar to mine, a smaller version. Yeah.
I looked up your website to see if there were any classes or you had any hikes going on, because I was going to go over there, but you didn't have anything.
Oh, I wish you had emailed me. What happens is, like, if someone emails me, I'll just say, oh yeah, I'll schedule a walk.
Oh, okay.
So next time, any of you, next time you're in town, just like send me an email, and if I'm here, I'll hook something up.
Maybe another 20 years.
Sorry about that.
So Heather, there's another question in the chat. David wants to know, are the piers wooden with dirt and plants on top?
Great question. So there's cement piers, and they have pilings or pylons of cement. Mm-hmm. And there is wood along the sides of some of them, but that's not what's fully supporting it. And in fact, it's a constant maintenance effort to keep the piers in shape. Mm-hmm. And the pier 2 is one of the piers they're working on and kind of replacing or reinforcing the pilings. And the barn swallows were nesting there. So last season I spoke up and said, you know what, there are barn swallows nesting under here, and there's the Migratory Bird Treaty Act. And I said it to them, and I said, you can't harm the nests. I mean, I couldn't see what was going on under there, but I had my guesses. And so we had some back and forth, and apparently they're surveying things before they do anything with it. But yeah, so I think they're always going to be reinforcing the piers just because of the weather conditions and the water.
Is there dirt then on top of the piers? No.
So yeah, so let's see. They plant, they bring all the trees in for the most part. So it's like, yeah, there's dirt, there's lawns. There is one of the piers is just sports courts, but that's even a habitat because grackles and stuff nest there. But and you know, some of them have paths, and then there's like beds, like the flower field I showed you, that has several beds of native plantings with, you know, a lot of cement paths along it.
Is it more of a soilless mix? Because we were over on Little Island, if you know where that is, on the west side.
Oh, is that the new?
Yeah, it reminded me of a high heel, the way it was.
Oh yeah. No, it's got, there's soil here for sure. Yeah. Okay,
because it looked like it would be very heavy, the way it was built up, except mm-hmm. It's all on these posts. But it was really hilly and had very large trees on it.
Oh, wow.
So if you haven't been there, you should check it out.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah. It's new, right? I mean,
I think it's pretty new.
Okay. Yeah. I gotta check it out.
There's a lot to see.
Yeah.
Do you have an opportunity with people in your area for night birding, where you're listening to the audio frequency of the birds as they fly over the radio?
Yeah, I don't think there are that many events like that, but Andrew Farnsworth, who also works for Cornell Lab of Ornithology and does the Birdcast project, he's an expert in nocturnal migration and detection of flight calls and stuff. So I know when they do the 9/11 memorial with the lights and New York City Audubon's there, and I think he's there too, and recording flight calls, and it's going on. But I don't think there are. That's a good point, because I don't think there are events. I did go up to Empire State one time. I didn't really hear much, but that would be really fun to do that at the height of migration.
Do you know if there's an opportunity like yourself where we might be able to get a person to provide a Zoom meeting for us on something like that?
On detecting flight calls?
Yeah. Just right off the top of your head.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not sure, you know, about that.
Okay.
But yeah.
There's another question. Is the river level rising, and will that be a problem in the future?
Yeah. It's a good question. I mean, and I think generally, yeah, it is rising, and it will be a problem. But I'm not really sure. I mean, what, you know, the surrounding land here is there's a lot of reinforcement. It's not like it's a soft coast here. So hopefully, you know, that will reduce the effects of erosion and things like that. But I think that's what we're seeing with the dilapidation of the piers and the constant need for reinforcing those. So yeah, I think it's just all around coasts everywhere. It's just a fortunate fact that yes, things will be affected. Yeah.
I saw a lot of glass What? I saw a lot of windows in the background. Is New York City doing anything, especially during migration, to prevent bird strikes?
Yes, yes, and that's a great question. And New York City Audubon has a program called Project Safe Flight, and where volunteers go around in the mornings during migration and document and collect dead birds, and also help any injured birds and bring them to Wild Bird Fund, who takes care of that. And NYC Audubon uses that data they also have a database called dBird, where you can submit your sightings. And they have worked with some big buildings like the Javits Center and worked with them on a retrofit of their windows and decreased the bird strikes by 90%. And I think there were some definitely other buildings they've worked with, but it's still a huge problem. In fact, in my patch, I mentioned skyscrapers going up. So this one building went up a couple of years ago, and it's horrible. I mean, it's just, a bird after bird, I'll stand there and I'll see it. So I had to do something. So I called a meeting with the designer of the building, and luckily he turned out to be a bird fan. And interestingly, wasn't that aware of this problem at that building, but we're in the process of working together, and looks like something's going to happen with getting some patterned glass on the side of the building. That's a real big problem, at least on the first or second floor. So just little baby steps, but, and not just myself, but there's people all over the city that are, doing the same type of thing. And, I mean, for me, I like to kind of do that and talk to people about it, but, people also mention it on social media and kind of mention problem buildings and things like that. So, yeah.
A comment to follow up on what you're talking about, the patch birding, being able to see the same birds over and over and get to know them a lot. And I go to a patch over here and ran into a guy that walks it all the time, and he got interested in birds, and we walk most mornings. We'll walk again tomorrow if anyone wants to join us at Riverview by the motorcycle parking lot, which is at the dead end by People's Appliance. We'll walk along the river and see some ducks and things that are there. That's pretty good. But he started in October, November, which for him was a perfect time because it was more into the winter. And when he really got going, got binoculars, because there weren't really a lot of birds all at once, because we can get 50 to 100 species, in a day sometimes, during migrations, it is. So we got to see the same woodpeckers and the same ones. Everything is new. It's really exciting. And you really can spot them. You can't hear them, but you can spot them. It's been a great team. We've had a lot of fun. He's seen some really great things. So it's a great time to start, if you're starting with somebody new, when there's not all hundreds of birds that get confused on,
And it's overwhelming too, right? Because there's that, you can't get a great view. And winter, you're more likely to get better views. Like you said, woodpeckers, and there's ducks. And so you're right. It's a great way to ease into it. I love that.
You get to know the common ones,
Yeah.
I do have to mention next month is April. Our April speaker is from the Rouse Sanctuary in Nebraska, where they have the sandhill cranes that go through in abundance. So you might want to pick up on that. We're hopeful in May that we're going to be back in the church and finally be able to get back everybody together again, which would be really wonderful. It'd be a great meeting if that works. We should know in a day or two. And just a reminder for the board members that are still on, just to hang on for a little bit if you can for a while, and just talk about one or two things. But so, and also I wanted to ask you if you know Sarah Kaiser, who works for the in research and stuff for Cornell Lab. Her twin sister went to school here, and they both did at the middle school where I taught. And I've seen her name, and you probably, it's a big organization, Cornell Lab. But do you know of her at all, Heather?
Oh, could you repeat the name?
Sarah Kaiser.
That doesn't ring a bell. No.
Okay.
So sorry.
Anyway, trying to reconnect. So, any other questions out there?
I have one question myself. So have you or your group that you bird with done a birdability survey for the park? You all knew I would ask about birdability.
I love that. And I noticed on your site that you have that whole section of birdability, and it reminded me because I was in the process of doing it. And I did contact the park about getting certain measurements, and they got back to me, but I never got around to submitting all that stuff. So I will do that. Definitely. I love that. And it's a great idea.
Great.
Question. Are you familiar with the book American Eden?
No. What is it?
It's it's the early history of the botanical gardens and the parks in New York City.
Ooh, I can't believe I haven't heard of that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, it's a very interesting read. So.
Oh my gosh, I gotta get that.
Goes back to the late 1700s.
American Eden.
American
Wonderful.
Eden. Yeah. Victoria Johnson is the author.
Okay, thank you so much.
See, I should put a plug in real quick.
Sure.
The Blackies will be coming back from Georgia. And maybe if Mark comes out from Colorado, we'll be starting birding here probably in April 1st. But this year, we're lucky to have Tom Moon probably be birding with us because he retired at the beginning of this month.
Ooh.
Little plug in for Tom Moon.
Tell him congratulations.
And Tom is one of the very many talented photographers that are in our group. We have very many talented photographers we're blessed with, and they share photos, and it just enriches all of our experiences. So we thank you all for doing that. All right.
Anything else? Anybody have questions or comments?
I wonder, Chuck, did you use that book when you were teaching from the 1700s?
It's a relatively recent book,
Okay.
but very interesting.
I just have a question for you all. For crane count, did you want to promote crane count happening up in Bremer County? It's April 9th. Is there going to be anybody participating? I'll be counting my cranes in Houston County, Minnesota.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. Signed up. Hope
Good to see things happening again, and being and then some rays of sunshine. I did mention we usually walk if anyone want to join us. It's be about 9 o'clock in the morning for an hour or two along the river. So, yeah. Great. There's great photos, Heather. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for all the great questions and recommendations. And if you're ever, next time you're here in Brooklyn or New York City, or if you visit for the first time, brooklynbridgebirds.com is where I'm at, or birdsofbrooklyn.com. Please reach out.
Okay.
I'd love to see you.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Very enjoyable.
Thanks.
And Lorraine Wellnuts, thanks a lot for letting us know about that.
Yes.
Lorraine.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Lorraine.
Yeah, you're welcome. It was a great talk to hear twice.
If you're not an eBird, get it on. You can put it on your phone. It's got a walks, tracks, tells you how far he's gone and where he's been and the birds. And you can find little patches. You can make one for your backyard or the parks that are nearby here. And it's great. So I just want to visit with some of the board members that are here for a little bit. And anybody, you can listen if you want to. It's just a pretty common stuff we're going to talk about. So we have when are you guys coming back from Georgia?
May. It'll be early May.
Early May. Okay.
Yeah.
Wussing it out this year again.
What's that?
So he said, she said you're whistling it out.
Oh, yeah.
Little
Yeah.
Iowa colloquial term here.
Yeah.
We got grandkid duty at the end of April, so we're excited.
Yeah. All right. See you guys.
See you guys.
All right. Good to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
So we have a board meeting scheduled on March 22nd. We may need to change the time.
Oh.
And it may not. Just checking. Candace has a conflict at that time. We found out at 4 that we were going to meet. So is there any? We could either meet, in the evening there, or Candace, you have some other suggestions for times, or
It's a Zoom meeting, Tom?
we may meet. I'll let you know when I hear from the church. I should hear from them in a day or two, but it'd be nice if we can get together at my house together again once if you're up for that. Otherwise, we can do Zoom. But I just right now, I just didn't want to get an idea of some times that might be available or dates about in that area.
I'm logging into my work calendar. So I'd be available in the evening that night, but it is a dentist appointment that I forgot about when we scheduled the board meeting. And my work schedule's gotten a little bit crazy. I'm going to have people out of the office. So I'm not going to have a lot of opportunity to like duck out in the middle of the afternoon and such. So
what day was that, Tom?
As a Tuesday, the 22nd.
Tuesday.
I know you prefer Tuesdays for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does an evening work for people if we got together?
We're good anytime that day, Tom.
Okay. So everybody's pretty much in agreement, an evening thing?
We are.
Okay. We will be replacing Tom Stone. He's requested not to be on the board again, although he's going to still keep doing the feeders and the things he's done before. Just put that out there. And maybe Jim Welch too. I haven't got an official thing from him yet. And it's not too late to volunteer to be president either. So and be thinking I'll get, there's some things starting to come together here now. I got thinking that I think it's about 25 years. Francis, was it 98, 99 when the organization
99.
99. Okay, so we're coming up on that. There's something to think about for future programming and maybe some special things we want to do as a Audubon chapter to recognize 25 years, boards in the paper and special things that we can do. So that's about all I have for right now.
What time were we going to meet then in the evening?
Well, like 7 or something. Does that work pretty well? For everybody?
Good here.
Yep.
Okay.
At your place?
No, will that work for everybody? Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whatever.
If you want, you can bring a mask, but so that'd be nice.
Yeah.
So we'll just plan on my house at 7. And if it's nice out that day, we can go out back in the yard, so never know. I think the red poles will be gone by then.
Well, thank you everybody for readjusting.
Forgot to mention that. And then on the field trips, it'd be nice to do a big marsh one here and about after the 15th, maybe around the 20th or something on a weekend or whatever. And I had just a bunch of purple finches and waxwings and robins and all this in these. I think they're what the name of the tree is now. So hawthorn trees without thorns. There's a row of just like
thornless hawthorn.
Huh?
Thornless hawthorn.
That's what it is. I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. I haven't figured it out yet, but that was there. And a lot of ducks are just starting to come in. So It's nice to see that.
Oh. Yeah. Did you hear that Red Haw had a lot of tornado damage?
Yep. You know, that's right where they had that, or that person was killed. And there's last time I was there, I was photographing those butterflies. In fact, it was that that red bud tree with the wax